You're listening to the podcast Coffee with Mike and Julie, Libertarians Talk Psychology. This is current commentary from an MBA businessman and a PhD psychologist.
Look what they done to my song.
So today, I want to start and get off the topic of the Beatles and get onto the topic of whoring.
Did I talk about the Beatles last time? I mean, I'm fixated on the Paul McCartney tour.
You got the CD from.
Oh, that's right. I wrote an editorial about it, and I'm beginning to really be fixated.
But you remember well of being a young teenager and was blown away with how great the Beatles were. So I don't blame you. I don't blame you for wanting to talk.
But I'll save it for my podcast day.
Yeah.
But
okay.
we somehow ran across this idea that you're going to talk about today, and it wasn't.
We're talking about whoring, and as libertarians, we kind of like the topic of whoring because we believe anything between consenting adults is okay. But let me start with the joke.
Okay.
We'll start with the joke. A Mormon was seated next to an Irishman on a flight from London to the U.S. After the plane was airborne, drink orders were taken. The Irishman asked for a whiskey, which was promptly brought and placed before him. The flight attendant then asked the Mormon if he would like a drink. He replied in disgust, "I'd rather be savagely abused violently by a dozen whores than let liquor touch my lips." The Irishman handed his drink back to the attendant and said, "Me too. I didn't know we had a choice."
That's a good joke.
Yeah.
I like that joke.
And of course, I saw it several times with an Irishman. It seemed to always be an Irishman.
Of course, it's the Irish. Of course, it's the Irish and the Scots Irish with the drink. I mean, it's like the stereotype. You know, the stereotype is kind of true. That's why it's a stereotype.
In fact, it's one of the things I learned from your family. Even though I was,
you blame me.
I was born Irish. I did not really get the
How
whole.
do you know you're Irish?
Because I look so damn Irish, and my name is Irish.
Well, that's true, but you had it sanitized out of you, didn't you?
Well, but anyway, I won't get into that.
Okay.
But I'm just saying, your dad really had it straight.
He embraced being
important.
Irish Catholic.
Drinking was important. Being Catholic was important. Telling stories was important. I really.
They have Irish. The Irish have the soul of a poet. Period. They're emotional. I mean, it's all stereotypical, which I can do because I'm Irish.
Yeah.
I checked that on one of the DNA things. I got about half Irish, about half English, except for American Indian.
Yeah, good for you.
Somebody got in there.
I still need to do mine. So let me go back to the whoring. So whoring. Let me do the definition, and then I'm going to get back to the joke. But the definition of whoring is to exploit crassly or unscrupulously for personal gain. And another definition is to compromise one's principles for personal gain. And of course, those definitions get out of the sexual side of the whoring definition.
Yeah, it's just because as libertarians, what we want to do is define whoring, and rather than selling your body is not the word. I don't know if the word. Who is it? Is it O'Rourke who wrote the book on the prostitution of the Congress? This has been way, way back. I've completely forgotten it. But a political analyst, comedian, I think by the name of O'Rourke.
I think you're right. I just don't remember his name. Wrote
the Confederacy of Whores or some. I got the title all wrong, but anyway. We all know that this is a political issue, the word whore. Okay.
Right. So in the joke, the Irishman and the Mormon, the Irishman.
It's a good joke.
For the Irishman, there's nothing wrong with the choice of a whore because he is a consenting adult. He's, if he had the choice, he'd go with the woman.
I didn't know I had a choice.
He's a consenting adult. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, for the Mormon, if that had been forced on him, that would not have been right. It would have been wrong to force him to be with a whore. But for the Irishman, there's nothing wrong with it because it's between consenting adults.
That's a stretch.
Okay.
You could say for a libertarian, there's nothing wrong with it, but there are a lot of Irish Catholics where it'd be something really wrong with it.
Yeah, of course.
That's why it's funny. That's why it's funny because wait, I didn't know I had a choice.
That's right. Well, but the whole point, and maybe I'm stretching it to try to make that point through that joke, but the point has to do with right and wrong. There's the definition of whoring, and then there is right and wrong. And I clarify right and wrong as anything that takes place between consenting adults.
Okay,
there's nothing wrong with it. And it's none of my business what takes place between consenting adults.
So I want to add another level of analysis to it. Okay, and this is something you probably definitely already know. From a psychological standpoint, what you're selling, consenting adults, has to do, I'm stumbling around, but let me thrash this out. A whore who sells something that they don't own, like a vote. Like when I started in with the psychologist in Louisiana, I was aghast to find out that when you went to talk to your legislators, you had to take a $500 check with you. And you had to make a contribution to, you want them to do something that's right, to make a law or to object to a law, but you had to pay them off. Okay, so whoring can describe two consenting adults who have 100% ownership of what they're trading. This is like a sexual whore can sell her body. I do believe that a woman can sell her body if she chooses to. I mean, as a libertarian, I also believe people can be horrified by that.
Sure.
Because it violates their moral limits.
Right.
But at the same time, she has every right to sell her body parts. But a legislator does not have the right to sell his vote because he represents many, many people who have a share of that territory.
Yeah, so he is supposed, that gets back to the definition of to exploit for personal gain. That's what that politician is doing. He's exploiting, and it has to do compromising one's principles. He is supposed to be, he is elected as a principled person who's representing all the people and gonna help the entire population. But when it comes down to accepting contributions, he's selling his vote for money, and what he votes for. Here's another principle when it comes to politics.
Well, now you would describe that as whoring then, is what he's doing.
Okay, hold on, let me finish.
Okay.
He's selling the ability to favor one group of people over another group of people, and that's what makes his vote so valuable. If his vote was going to apply to all people equally, then it wouldn't be so bad. But that isn't what politics is. That's not what politics is, and it certainly isn't what political contributions are about.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so politics is about self-interest conflicts. So you're pointing out that a politician, when he sells his vote, he's whoring for one side or the other for a personal gain. So
he's not only whoring, I say that he's worse than your typical whore.
Well, I don't think there's anything wrong with your typical whore. So
I don't either. But I want to point out why I think he's worse. Because he's being deceptive to his voting population.
I would definitely agree with you on that, by the way. He's worse on several different levels. That's what the word, we have this value judgment goes with the word whore. He's more of a whore than any whore.
A whore is very open about what she's selling and how much it's going to cost. And the transaction is done and it's over with.
Yeah. We should call them sex workers.
Yeah.
I've heard that term. sex workers. Although I don't agree with that, because I think women are in that profession because of discrimination and lack of opportunity and all that. I mean, that's a whole different kettle of fish.
The kettle of fish, like you say. But in a fair world where women have decent alternatives, there's nothing wrong with her choosing that profession and doing what she wants to make money.
It's complicated, and I can understand sex workers being criticized by the moral group.
Sure.
It's like they believe that's immoral. I certainly understand that position.
And they're free to preach that to their population.
Yeah, and try to convince people that it's not good. And I don't think it's good for women. I don't think it's good for a woman to sell her body. So let's just get that clear. But politicians, okay, we had another example pop up on our first cup of coffee this morning, which is medical information whoring.
Yes.
And I have a tragic example in my life with my sister who passed away of cancer. And we were at MD Anderson. Is it okay to tell this story now?
Yeah.
We were at MD Anderson, and she had a piece of a tumor pop up out of her belly button.
But she was clearly dying, right, at this point?
Well, I don't think I accepted that, and I don't think she accepted that, but I think all the medical people knew it.
Okay, go ahead.
I think they knew there's like a 1 in a million chance that some, thing would work. But she was doing her last effort with MD Anderson. So we were talking, I said, can you do something about this tumor? It was distressing her because you could see it. It was very depressing. It wasn't a big thing.
Popping out of her belly button.
It was a little bubble of growth popping out of her belly button, coming through that umbilical cord. And it was distressing to her. And I said, can you do something about it? That physician started talking about, we can take care of that tumor. And she and I both felt like, this would extend her life or maybe help treat the tumor. He was offering to do surgery.
And she was on board with it. She perked up and she was on board.
Yeah, let's do it. And I said, how will this will help her? I said, help her extend her life. He said, no. And I said, this would just be for cosmetic purposes. And he said, well, yeah, we'll make her feel better and be for cosmetic. And so I taught, two things I want to say about that. One, I talked to my sister privately, and I said, this is ridiculous that you would let them put you through surgery at this point and take you away from your family and take you away from your home and the comfort of your home. And she was so weakened, of course, with the disease and the stress of going through this that she couldn't analyze that until I got her away and analyzed it for her. But that damn effing whore who would sit there at MD Anderson and put a dying patient through an unnecessary surgery that would have no benefit to her. I mean, only in hindsight, when you're in the middle of something like that, you don't absorb the total immorality going on.
Yeah.
But ethical and immoral act of that guy, all for the almighty dollar.
And again, I point out that the whore transaction is a much more moral transaction than what that doctor was representing to you.
Absolutely.
Because he was happy to let y'all believe that this would help her.
This would be somehow health promoting.
That's right. He was happy to make $100,000 doing a surgery that wasn't going to do her much good except for make her belly button look better the last month of her life.
It's really unbelievable in a way, isn't it? When you analyze it for all its pieces psychologically, that's unbelievable that asshole would communicate that to a person who is struggling at the end of their life or potentially, grasping at one little straw of hope. And he let her do that for his financial benefit.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in touch with how rageful I feel about him now.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about this in years. So the reason that popped up was I told you about this new article that I saw on monoclonal antibodies for cancer with full remission for 12 kidney cancer patients. And
had very good results.
It had perfect results, 100% remission in all 12 people, which monoclonal antibodies is supposed to do that. I mean, they've been working on monoclonal antibodies for a long time. So the comment I was telling you about, this comment said, yeah, another cure for cancer that'll be suppressed by big pharma, big medicine. And I think that's a lot of truth to that.
Well, we sure as hell suspected it when it came to the early treatments for COVID. We suspected it when we look at the history of the opioid crisis.
Oh my God, yes.
So yeah, the medical profession, and let me say this: the COVID stuff really
broke it open
for us, even concerning our individual practitioner doctors. They were no longer decent advice for when we needed something done, because they were so pressured by their profession to do things a certain way and no other way.
Yeah. So we all, libertarians in particular, need to point out the whores in medicine, the whores everywhere, the people who have sold their soul to the devil and are miscommunicating facts. Oh, and by the way, this god-awful thing, the scientists, the political elite in my group, they're harping on this misinformation. And these knuckleheads can't tell misinformation from the propaganda. Anyone who's in the system can wave the flag, this is propaganda, but you can't tell propaganda from non-propaganda until you've really studied it very carefully and openly, and the cognitive elite cannot do that. They're in bed. Psychologists are now 80% in bed with big pharma and big medicine.
So here's the point I want to make as we are going toward the bottom end of this podcast, is that there's whoring, which is an upfront transaction between adults. Honest transaction between adults.
An honest free market transaction.
And sexual whoring, it's not a problem. If those sexual whores have a pimp who sneaks into the room and steals that John's wallet, if they're deceptive, they don't last very long in the free market world.
Well, I wouldn't know about that, but it sounds right.
I'm just trying to stretch it. But in these examples we're coming up with, and we can come up with examples, it isn't just the medical pharmaceutical industry, and it isn't just politicians. It's, I think our news media.
They're whores too.
Well, but I'm trying to make the distinction that they are deceptive. These people use deception along with their whoring, and we're supposed to accept that.
Are you saying that deception is part of the characteristic of whoring?
No.
Okay. But so you're making the point that a whoring person, let's just say a political whore, has sold his soul to the devil, and he may be deceptive or he may be straightforward. It could be that deception is part of it. Secrecy is probably part of it, because if somebody finds this out, you might object. The citizenry might object, although that's a different kettle of fish too, is that I find the citizenry to be very passive and not very capable of taking action. But I agree with you that in some cases, the transparency, this gets complicated, because I've noticed doing this newspaper that transparency, shining a light on something, is a very effective way to make them quit some of the whoring. Just the fact that the news is out there.
Sure. Well, and to go back to sex worker whoring, if there was complete openness, those husbands, they don't want their wives to find out they went and visited a whore. They want that transaction.
That's the other side of it.
They want that transaction
to be secret.
To be secret and just between him and the whore. So complete openness is a problem.
Well, that reminds me of the Beatles song, "Remember, I'll always be true. Close your eyes." So we were talking about that. So that's a good point. That's a good point. There are all kinds of transactions going on when there's a illicit sale of something that in typical ways you're not supposed to sell.
Right.
There's probably a country that's legalized prostitution, right?
I think so. But I think we've had that discussion before, but I've forgotten.
Yeah. Okay. But so as libertarians, we're very aware of whoring going on.
And we are very aware of deceptive whoring, which is a level below, a level worse than regular whoring. It's deceptive whoring.
Yeah, I think we're complicating that, but that's important. That in order to cheat, deception is usually necessary. So, as libertarians, a regular whore is not cheating. She's just selling something that's a kind of a rare commodity because, our moral laws are against it. The husband is cheating.
Right.
Okay. So as libertarians, we believe that a person, as long as it's their territory, like in the case of a sex worker, it's her body, they have the right to do with their body what they want to do with their body. Mm-hmm. That's a true statement for libertarians.
Mm-hmm. I don't guess I have anything more to say about it except that
that was a great joke. I think that's a hilarious joke.
And we like it because we're both Irish.
He says to the waitress, "I didn't know I had a choice. I'll take the 72 virgins too."
But I just wanted to point out with this whole podcast that there is whoring and then there's right and wrong. And that when these agencies, when these businesses, usually they have to link up with some government agency in order to be deceptive. And a politician is, by definition, a government agency. So when they are linked up with the government agency and they are free to be deceptive and take your money, it's worse than regular whoring. And that's the whole point of what I wanted to say.